What's up, everybody? I'm Adam McDormand, and this is Medium Quality. On the A side this week, I want to pick up where I left off a few weeks ago, talking about one of my very favorite bands, minus the Bear. Specifically, their 2007 album, Planet of Ice. By the time this album came out in 2007, Minus the Bear had definitely become one of my most frequently listened to bands. I loved Highly Refined Pirates when I discovered that album. Menace El Oso, when it came out, was really different and really interesting, and I grew to love that album as well, with its slight hip-hop influence. And this album, very different still. Planet of Ice is very much an album that is a snapshot of a band in transition. It's got elements of what Minus the Bear was before, the bright, mathy, emo-tinged sound that they had before, which is fantastic. But they also were starting to become more atmospheric. And that would show on later albums where there's more of a focus on kind of pop-sensible, almost dance beat-oriented music. This album finds itself somewhere in between those two ends of the spectrum. It is atmospheric and, dare I say it, progressive, which is probably why it's one of my favorites of their albums. And you see that coming through on this album with the longer song lengths. In fact, there is a two-part song, Dr. Ling and Part 2, which clocks in somewhere around 10 minutes. And there's this slow, atmospheric kind of building sound that they establish that is distinct from what they had been doing before. You can tell by listening to even the first few songs that they are experimenting with their sound. They're pushing the emo math rock sound to its limits and then breaking past that and doing something a little more atmospheric and progressive, like I said. Not every track on this album is really long. In fact, one of my favorite songs on this album, When We Escape, on side C of this double LP, is really groovy. It's got like a slow jam feel to it, super catchy, and perhaps just a bit sexual. And then the album closes with Lotus, which is an almost 9-minute song that takes up all of side D on this album. And that song has a really slow building groove to it, with probably the most progressive sounding guitar work that is on this album or anything after what they did on this album. My vinyl copy of this is the 2014 reissue with the silhouette image in the gatefold. The earlier pressings of this album are really hard to come by, so I was really happy when they reissued this album, because I was actually able to afford a copy. And it's on this really nice looking purple, kind of marbled vinyl, which matches the aesthetic of the album art really nicely. And it sounds fantastic. This album sounded great to begin with back when it came out, and even better to add the subtle warmth of vinyl to songs that are trying to be a little more atmospheric, and that keyword that I use on this channel a lot. This is the most unique album in their discography, so I definitely recommend checking it out. Minus the Bears, Planet of Ice from 2007. Check it out. So on the B side this week, I want to clear up a misunderstanding that I had in regards to some previous shows. So one of the things that I have talked about a couple of times on the show is the idea of a universal living wage. Another term for what I was thinking called the basic income. And those two terms have a subtle difference in their meaning. The living wage is where the minimum wage that a person can earn at any job is one that you could live on. It's a livable wage. Whereas a basic income is a set amount of money that is allotted to every person, basically. So those terms are a little bit different. So please forgive me for my ignorance in previous shows because there is a subtle difference to what those terms mean, but they are connected to one another. And this is why. I've talked about the idea of the universal living wage, which is basic income. I've talked about automation, which will eventually lead to the necessity of a basic income. And I've talked a little bit about the middle class. Those ideas, those concepts are tied to one another at this point in history for a very interesting reason. Think of this. What is a company more motivated to eliminate through automation? Is it better to replace the people that are making sandwiches for $7.50 an hour with robots? Or is it a better idea to replace the guy who for $22.50 an hour is bolting doors onto the side of an SUV? It's obvious. It makes more sense that automation is going to target those medium-skilled jobs, those jobs that exist in the middle class, that have made the middle class so prosperous and so powerful for the past few decades up until 2008-ish. Those jobs are under attack in a lot of ways right now. Those will probably start to go away here within the next 5 to 10 years. Now, the idea of a living wage is more comfortable to us than the idea of a basic income, because the idea of giving everybody money whether they work or not is so far outside of what we could consider to be reasonable that's difficult to swallow until we start to think about the events that will give rise to that necessity. A living wage, however, seems reasonable. We would think, okay, if we want to attack poverty, if we want to increase the quality of living for people who are stuck in the lower class, then let's make low-skill jobs livable jobs. Even if you don't consider all of the economic side effects of doing that, whatever costs are going to pass along to the consumer, making those jobs, $12, $15 an hour, is going to mean that it's worthwhile for corporations to find a way to eliminate those jobs, to automate them. And because they're simpler jobs, lower skilled jobs, it's going to be easier to create the technology that can eliminate those jobs. So really, a living wage, increasing minimum wage, is only a temporary solution to what is essentially the end of the current idea of capitalism. And that's super scary because nobody wants to be associated, at least certainly not in America, with communism or socialism because they're such dirty words. But in a world where work is not only less and less required, but less and less available for those who even want to do it, we may end up having to swallow what seems like a very bitter pill. Anyways, that's a lot of conceptual talk in a very short amount of time, and I'm certainly no expert. What's your opinion? Are you afraid of the idea of the basic income, giving money to everyone? Are you nervous about making minimum wage jobs livable? What's your opinion? Am I totally wrong? feel free to comment in the comments section below. Be nice, because we're all here for good stuff. Make sure you hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Visit facebook.com/mediumq to like the channel's fan page, and you'll get links there to the website at mediumq.com, which is where I'm writing about other stuff. And until next time, thank you so much for your time, and peace out.